So you kind of already touched on this, but what is the difference? What is the actual difference between joy and happiness? Or is there a difference?
Yeah, I think of joy as a baseline. We all have a set point for joy. We all, because of how we really formed our definitions of the world when we're very young, because that's when we form it. That's when we're, primarily in theta brainwave state, the very, very impressionable time when, we get on this planet asking, how is it here? What are things like here? And the information is really overwhelming. And to make it less overwhelming, we create these categorization buckets. Men are this, women are this, love is this, money is this, power is this, rules are this. And whatever impressions we first get from our family of origin, our schools, our teachers, whatever that might be, we tend to very selectively fill those buckets with whatever bits of information correspond to them. We talk a lot about the filter in Joy School. We all, nobody's experiencing objective reality. There's no such thing as objective reality. We're all experiencing the world out there through our distorted perception filters based on these buckets that we set up. So based on that, your beliefs about your place in the world, who you are, we have a set point for joy, just like a thermostat set point or, metabolic set point. And if something were to appear in the world that would significantly up-level our joy, if it doesn't kind of match our buckets, the water that we swim in, we're going to shut it down subconsciously. So joy is a set point that we can actually elevate. We can get cognizant of our habitual thought patterns, cognizant of our bucket beliefs, and by allowing some distance between us and our thoughts, becoming the observer through just some really easy tools that we can apply, we can raise our set point for joy. So again, happiness I see as something that we all want happy moments. We should have as many happy moments as we can, but we can find joy in all the moments. We can, it's more of a all-encompassing baseline, I think.
Got it. I understand that 100%. You mentioned, which I feel like I understand, but I would appreciate if you were to break it down for a second. Yeah. No one has objective reality.
Yeah, totally.
What does that mean?
I'm going to use Joe Dispenza's numbers. I've seen a lot of different numbers, but I like to go to Joe as my science guy. We have 400 billion bits of perception available to us in any given moment. Every second, there's 400 billion bits. And our conscious awareness allows 2,000 bits of information through to land in our brains, our awareness, our consciousness. So how are those 2,000 bits selected? It's whatever we've already kind of assumed about the world. We have a built-in confirmation bias, which is just the tendency to selectively listen to, pay attention to information that corresponds with what we already believe. We've seen a lot of that in recent years with politics and world events. We have a built-in conformity bias, which is the tendency to want to believe what those around you believe, our families of origin or our friend groups. That's part of our primitive brain not wanting to be ostracized from the tribe. And we have a built-in negativity bias that's also part of our primitive makeup, which means if there are two ways to perceive an event, I'm going to stay safer if I choose the negative way to perceive it. But a lot of that safety is no longer necessary. We kind of stay in that sort of survival mode when most of us are not truly, in any position where our survival is threatened. So those three biases cause us to limit our awareness of the 400 billion bits of information which are available to us, a lot of which might contain opportunities, paths we could and people we could meet, conversations we could have that would significantly expand our experience here and up-level our joy. But because none of us is seeing the fullness of objective reality, we're only seeing through our distorted filter, we miss it.
Got it. 100%. So are you, and I agree with you, but did you say that humans in general tend to see things on the negative side for survival?
Yeah.
Okay.
Back to caveman days. If you saw the tall grass moving, it could just be a rogue wind. It might be a predator. It would behoove you to assume the latter so that you could run. If the red berries might look delicious, but if you had red berries that killed your cave mate last week, you're going to avoid all red berries. So it's just sort of like an instinctive, if there's two ways to perceive this, my boyfriend said XYZ at the party, he might have just been thinking about whatever, or he might not love me anymore. You're going to assume the latter because that's how we protect ourselves.
Yeah.
And it's not really learned. Well, some of us have it learned from our families of origin, but I think it's kind of innate, but it can be unlayered and unprogrammed because usually it doesn't serve us to assume the worst.
Wow. So what about, not to say that I am programmed differently, because I'm sure that I'm not, but what about individuals who always, so I've always been called naive,
Right.
because labeled as naive, because I always view the positive. So like, do you think such and such is hurting such and such, even though it's almost blatantly obvious that it's a negative? I always am like, no, he probably is viewing it this, like, I find the twist. Where do you think that's taught?
I sense that you've been around the spiritual block, and I think that there's a deep knowing inside you that is what's going to lead you to have a better expanded experience here. So I don't know what your family of origin was like. Sometimes we emulate our family of origin. That could be something that you picked up. Sometimes we so poignantly are aware that we don't want to emulate, that we swing the other way on purpose. So there are a lot of different things, that could create that lens, that viewpoint. But I think that your inner knowing, you're probably a little more connected to your innate inner knowledge than the average bear, and our inner knowing does allow us to override that safety block that we have.
Got it. That is so interesting. I can tell that you're just filled with so much. You're filled with so much knowledge. So tell us about Joy School, your creation. What is this?
Thank you. One of my clients recently used a phrase that I love, that I've been saying, which is that it's a personal growth boutique. And I like that description because what I do is I offer up what I consider the best and most effective pieces of all the top transformational gurus that I've written for, studied with, and I've done it all in my decades in this realm. So I'm the curator, basically, of this wealth of material, just the guide that takes you through. Joy School is an online forum primarily for now. Live events are on the horizon again, now that that's become more doable, to bring that back. I used to have a lot of live events, and I'm hoping to do that again this year. But for now, it's primarily an online forum for learning new ideas, concepts, paradigms that you bring to your daily life to recalibrate that set point for joy. We operate primarily through online circles, small groups, and that's for my joy. I realized that this is the way I most enjoy delivering information. I used to write, I used to blog, I used to create courses that people would go do on their own. And I just realized that that's not bringing me what I need. I know that I can be most effective when I'm in your energy, in your space. I can tailor things to you. I can customize programs for you that I can't do when I'm just wrapping up these pretty parcels and sending them out into the void. I used to like doing that. I don't anymore. So I just shifted up my whole, how I do things, that it's primarily through these small online groups that are always divinely orchestrated and just beautifully supportive for all the members. So that's the biggest thing about Joy School, is the circles that I lead. Every first Monday of the month, I have a free online joy party where I invite some of my favorite guest speakers and gurus and teachers to co-host with me. So your audience is more than welcome to join us. June 7th, we'll have Scott Stabile, who wrote Big Love, who is just absolutely, you will die. He's so yummy. He's just this like heartfelt sweetheart. And all of my guests are extraordinary. So come June 7th, 7 p.m. It's a free event. And that's all we're really doing right now. I hope to get more on the calendar soon.
June 7th?
Yeah.
Is this a Zoom call, or what is it?
It's a Zoom.
And how do we get the link?
You can go to my website, the tab that says offerings, it's a little registration button, and it's all free.
Very cool. Very cool. I love that. I was going to ask, as far as the Joy School goes, do you do, okay, so you said that you enjoy the groups, the circles that you were saying. Do you see a difference between working with a smaller amount of people that can kind of feed off of each other a little bit compared to one-on-ones? What's your view on that?
I do one-on-ones. I offer one-on-ones. Right now, most of my one-on-one clients are also in the circles. I find that we learn from one another. I think that's why I enjoy it more than one-on-ones, is I'm still learning, I'm still growing, we're spiraling, all of us. And to have some really solid concept introduced, which we do every week, and then everybody goes and has home play. We apply it to our lives throughout the week. Mm-hmm. We also meet for group meditations, just to combine that energy. So those are optional other Zoom meetings where we get together and have guided meditation together. But to hear that concept, that modality filtered through the perspective of the different members of the group, just makes it land so much more solidly. Some of my participants have said that their most powerful aha moments have happened when I'm working with another group member, because sometimes you're a little bit shy about, we all have different degrees to which we're comfortable being vulnerable in that kind of situation, but you can use somebody else's brave vulnerability to do your own work. So that's why I just love groups. I find it so effective.
Awesome. Yeah. And I would totally tend to agree with you. And that was one of my frustrations with, COVID happening, was losing that. And as much as we all love Zoom and it's wonderful, it definitely still doesn't have that same connection. And especially, my fiance and I, our love language is physical touch. So to be able to touch and hug and put a hand on someone's shoulder, and having that connection has been lost, for a while. So I totally agree with you.
I was a hugger. I used to have a business called Love Shack, which Joy School evolved from Love Shack, and we would have live events every month, and people would tell me, like, I just come for the hugs, because there was such a juicy vibe of connectivity.
Yes. I remember when I first learned that about myself. It was probably only maybe 5 or 6 years ago. It was frustrating for me because growing up, again, I was labeled as being overly affectionate or flirtatious because of that. And it was deemed as a negative attribute for myself. And that was very frustrating until I kind of came to the realization that it's in me. It's not something that I'm trying to do sexually. It's something that I am doing that's just innate within me that I can't help. That's how I show my love and my appreciation. So learning that was a huge aha moment for me, and being able to live that way on a big level now, instead of, pushing it down has been real awesome for me recently. And that was one of the things that I loved about being in groups, is being able to hold hands and being able to hug and embrace when things like that come to fruition, when people start to realize things about themselves and being able to embrace, on the kerplunk. What is it? The kerplunk?
Yeah.
When that happens, it's just so beautiful.